My name is Mercedes Harbert Black, and today I'll be presenting my disease project on dengue fever, introductory microbiology lab. So we're gonna start by identifying what dengue fever is. Dengue fever is a mosquito-borne viral disease that occurs in tropical and subtropical areas. Dengue is most common in Southeast Asia, the Western Pacific Islands, Latin America, and Africa. There have been outbreaks in Europe and in the southern states of the US. Dengue is caused by a virus of the Flaviviridae family. Infections are caused by a flavivirus transmitted by the Aedes mosquito. There are 4 serotypes of the virus, all of which cause dengue fever. If a person becomes infected with the virus a second time, they're at greater risk of developing more severe disease. Now we'll examine the structure of dengue. Dengue virus is roughly spherical in shape. The virus is made up of viral genome and capsid proteins, which are surrounded by an envelope and a sheet of proteins. Once a person is infected, the virus uses the host's own machinery to replicate. So this is an image of the life cycle of the virus. So it begins with an infected mosquito biting a healthy human. The virus is then transferred to the human host. The virus affects immune cells by attaching to cognate receptors and enters by endocytosis. Inside, endosome protein pumps lower pH. This causes changes that lead to a spiky structure. Being hydrophobic, the virus binds to cell membrane, causing release of capsid in cytoplasm. Capsid proteins then break apart, releasing the viral RNA, which gains entry into the rough endoplasmic reticulum. There, RNA molecules form a round shape and binds with ribosome, forming in a single polypeptide chain during translation. Some of these proteins form a complex called Rna Replication Complex. The ends of RNA fold up and undergo translation, forming a double helix structure. This leads to synthesis of many positive sense RNA. More viral proteins are then formed. These proteins, along with RNA and envelope proteins, aggregate and package, being released from the endoplasmic reticulum immaturely. The virus travels to the Golgi apparatus and buds off. And finally, the virus is released from the immune cells and are ready to infect others, and this is when they are mature. So next we'll go over how dengue fever is transmitted, or how it's acquired. It's transmitted by the Aedes mosquito. These mosquitoes live between the latitudes of 35 degrees north and 35 degrees south below elevation of 1,000 meters. Humans are the primary host of the virus, but it can also circulate in non-human primates. Infection is acquired via single bite. Female mosquitoes take blood meals from a person infected with dengue fever. During the initial 2 to 10 day febrile period, the mosquito becomes infected itself with the virus in the cells lining of the gut. 8 to 10 days later, the virus spreads to the tissues, including the mosquito's salivary glands, and is released into the saliva. There's no detrimental effect on the mosquito, and the mosquito actually lives with the virus in it for life. Transmission can also be done via infected blood products or organ donation. Transmission can also be done through mother-baby, and in very rare cases, sexual contact. Here's a picture of the Aedes mosquito. Now we'll go over the mechanism by which the organism causes disease. It gains entry via the bite of the mosquito and initially through the Langerhans cells. Infected cells disseminate through the lymphatic system, where myeloid dendritic cells and blood-derived macrophages and splenic and hepatic macrophages are infected. Signs and symptoms of dengue fever. The most common is fever and severe headache. Patients or people infected may also experience rash, eye pain, muscle pain, bone pain, joint pain, and overall fatigue, malaise, nausea, and vomiting. Dengue fever is only diagnosed through blood test in a lab. So this test sees if the virus is in the person's bloodstream or if there are any antibodies present. Most laboratories or clinicians will take a symptom and travel history so that they can see if there's cause for suspicion of dengue fever. Currently, there's no specific treatment or medicine for dengue fever. You treat the symptoms, so those who are infected are encouraged to stay hydrated, replenish their electrolytes, take acetaminophen to control fever or relieve pain. Do not take aspirin or ibuprofen. Get plenty of rest. As far as preventing dengue fever, the biggest method would be to avoid mosquito bites. Using insect repellent with DEET in it or Picardin, that's extremely helpful, as well as wearing long sleeved shirts and longer pants and being sure to cover up when outdoors. People can also get mosquito nets, especially if they're traveling or they live in subtropical and tropical areas. Treating clothing with Picardin also helps. There is a vaccine for dengue fever. It is approved for children between the ages of 9 and 16 years of age. As of right now, it is not approved for U.S. travelers going to some of these subtropical or tropical areas. It is mostly for people who live in the endemic areas where dengue is most seen.
We the best.
Turn it off.
Nice.